Motherhood, but not quite as we imagine. Thought-provoking, refreshing, straightforward, sometimes taboo, often seemingly ordinary, but always honest. Welcome to School for Mothers, opening conversations we all need to have, exploring ways in which you can be fulfilled as a woman, once a mother. Now, here is your host, mother of 10, Danusha Melina Durban.
Hello and welcome back to the School for Mothers podcast. I'm Danusha Melina Durban, your host.
My expert and special guest today is Meg Mathews. Meg is the founder of Megs Menopause and has since become a spokeswoman to raise awareness about the chronic lack of support for women going through the menopause in the workplace and in all areas of their lives. She's launched a full range of intimate body products. I nearly said pubic. I don't know why I nearly said that. Beauty products to help tackle menopause symptoms. And these have been covered by national and international media, including British Vogue, Red Magazine, and Grazia. I hope I've said that last one right. We heard from women all over the world on what they were never told about the menopause. They shared their surprise at newfound clumsiness, dry vaginas, and the freedom of not having a monthly cycle any longer. And they shared way more than that. Seriously. But thank you hugely to our contributors. I was really touched. We've got a lot of emails from women all around the world who actually are really suffering with what they didn't realise was menopause. I've no doubt that Meg and I, by the way, are really going to be covering these topics and many more. So I won't keep you any longer. I'm terribly excited. I apologise if I'm a bit excitable on this episode. But I've been super excited and longing to talk with Meg. It's good. Let's dive into my conversation with Meg on menopause. Listeners, we had the most amazing response about part 1 of our menopause episode. There was women, as you know, if you've listened to it, which so many of you have, we had women from all around the world describing what they wish they'd known about menopause and what they hadn't known. They ran the gamut of all of the kind of, issues and opportunities. Oh God, are there any opportunities in menopause? We're going to find out today, actually. But, they really ran the gamut of experiences about menopause. And today's episode, I am fucking excited about today's episode, like part 2 of menopause. Yes, we're going to crank this up. I'm going to be in conversation with Meg Mathews, who is this mega superstar in terms of her mission with menopause. Hello, Meg. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I had to be in conversation with you, Meg, because I know that you've got this really big push out in the world to kind of empower women in terms of education and how to actually help them solve and understand what's going on in this period of life. I'm sure you've got a better way of describing it, but I love what you're doing with Meg's Menopause. Tell us a bit about it.
So, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. So with Meg's Menopause, I really could not believe that what I went through, there was just no information out there. So for me, I had the worst menopause. It destroyed my life. It basically, one day I just woke up with the worst anxiety, foggy brain. I didn't leave my house for 3 months. I told everyone I had glandular fever.
Bless you.
The social anxiety just completely depleted my life. It was just the worst thing that had ever happened. I don't know. It felt like I had agoraphobia. I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I had foggy brain. I had anxiety. I felt low. I had night sweats. I felt nauseous. My boobs were huge. I had dry mouth syndrome. All this came on me like out of nowhere. And I had the Mirena coil. So I wasn't having a period. My partner was the one that basically said to me, basically like 6 months down the line, you haven't had a period. But within this time, what I would do is I would set the alarm, crawl out of bed, look like I was all really like sort of happy, he would go off to work. I couldn't even drive. I was that anxious. I would then I would just basically put Inez in an Uber. She was doing her GCSEs. She would go off to school. I would then crawl back into bed, put like the duvet over my head or whatever, and just sort of stay there and basically just be like this white rabbit in the headlights, really not going what's on. Basically, I thought that my whole rock and roll lifestyle, if you don't know about me, anyone out there, I was married to somebody, but in a band, I did live the complete rock and roll lifestyle. So as you know, I am a recovering alcoholic. Within that, I did party very hard, drink, drugs, sex, rock and roll was a big part of my life. And so all I could think about was, oh my God, my mum kept saying to me, this will all catch up with you. You don't know what you're taking, you know, having the mum saying all this. I really did sit there and go, oh my God, maybe this is what all those ecstasy tablets that I took back in the 80s when I was raving in my dungarees and blowing a whistle, you know, when I was like 17 or 18 in the early 80s or whatever, when I was doing all the raving and I was thinking, oh my God, I didn't think about anything about it. Okay. And I did do all that. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, shattered my nervous system. It's all caught up with me. So your brain sort of tells you things and then you're all like, I can't go and discuss this with anyone. I can't tell anyone. This is the only thing that could be happening to me. Because what else? I eat healthy. I'm plant-based. I train. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't take drugs. I'm fucking 100% healthy. So what is going on? So I was so worried. Then the next minute, I scrambled myself out to the local GP, like in floods of tears, managed to walked in there and just said, I don't know what's going on. And then he just went, okay, antidepressants, boom, here you go. Came home, started taking them. And I was just like, oh God, what's going on? And basically really didn't get my head around what was going on. On antidepressants, still nothing, you know, because of course as we know, this is my hormones should be balanced. But of course I don't know.
It wasn't depression.
You know, I haven't got depression, I've got anxiety. So he's giving me antidepressants for anti-anxiety medicine. Okay. But no one has told me that basically all you need to do is, you're going through your perimenopause or your postmenopause or your menopause. As we know, perimenopause is the early signs where it comes and goes, can be from the early ages of 40. We have 1 in 100 women from the ages of 40 to 45. So you could be having these symptoms, but they last a couple of days. So you just feel a bit off for a few days. Do you know what I mean? You could have headaches.
Yes.
There's like 34 symptoms. But I have known none of this. I've just learned this on my mission, on myself, as I decided to set Meg's Menopause up. So I'm now going through all of this. And then all of a sudden I meet someone, a woman in AA, and she said to me, Meg, have you ever thought about the menopause? And I looked at her like, what do you mean the menopause? Me? The menopause? That's just for old women. It's for old women, frail grannies, you know, grey wash, frail little ladies, you know. She said, I'm going through the menopause. Everything you're describing is the menopause to me. I'm like, no. And then she's like, yeah. So then immediately I'm like, race home. I'm like, oh, okay. So I ring my gynecologist up. I go make an appointment, go straight to her. You know, I'd done my smear, whatever, the 2 years before, because we don't do them like in America. I think they do them every year in America, but we do them, I think, every 2 years here. And then I went to her and then she did look back and she did say, Meg, you know, you have been coming to me, if we look back now, I think since 2000 and maybe like, it was like 2000, maybe it's like 2015 or something. She said, I've done some bloods on you back then. And of course, I don't remember. She said, because, you know, she said you were feeling up and down. And then I'm thinking, did I come in there? She goes, yeah, you came in to see me and I've got here, look at your notes. And I started to look at her notes, but I really didn't take it in that I'd sort of come in and saw her and had a spirit and go, I've been feeling a bit like this and a bit like that. And she'd sort of written it down and making notes. And so when I've got my notes back for, because I'm writing a book about my journey, we can see that I was actually having times when I would go and speak to her, but they would only last like a week or 10 days. So these bouts of it, I would just put down to stress, lifestyle, being in the public eye, you know, just everyday stuff,
Yes.
eating crap food, I would even put down to, because I'm so sensitive now from being sort of healthy that if I ate sugar, I would feel rubbish the next day. So I'd sort of just never put it down to exactly, you know, the hormones, even though she was probably saying it's something to do with your hormones. I would just take it with a pinch of salt and be like, yes, can you change my Marina coil? Thank you very much. Da, da, da. That's all I was seeing her for, and having a smear. So was never taken in really what she was saying to me, except I could see when she'd written my notes down and handed me my notes. I think it was even from 2013. If we go back to it. So, you know,
Yeah.
I'm in my early 40s, so I've been having these sort of changes, but I never really took it on board. So we're now, you know, hitting 48, 49. And now it's sort of starting to really kick in. And I go and see her. We do the bloods, and then they come back. And as I'm leaving, she hands me some estrogel, which is a gel that you rub on your arm, some testosterone, another gel, and a progesterone tablet. She gives me these, and I'm like, well, you haven't got the bloods back. She's like, trust me, just take these, start taking them, you will feel better. And within 4 days, my night sweats had stopped. Okay. So this shows, and I was changing my sheets.
Wow.
My hair was soaking wet. I'd stand up and they would come every night at exactly the same time. 3:30, 4:45, I was soaking wet. It was like, you know, I could actually see my body. It was an outline, like a crime scene on the bed.
Oh,
You
God.
know, so it was, I mean, it was horrendous. But all of this was like, oh my God, I'm sweating stuff out from years ago, you know, and nothing pointed me. There was nothing in my psyche. There was nothing in my life that had the word menopause anywhere. I didn't.
And why do you think that was, Meg? I mean, why do you think that you and society generally, anyway, it's not personal to you, just keeps menopause as something that we've given to, you know, the stereotype of the old, shriveled up, dried up crone.
You know what I mean?
You know, that kind of old woman.
You know, this is where it gets me so angry because, and it really upsets me, but really upsets me is because I am 53 now. At the age of 50, I made myself get a DEXA scan, and I have got a DEXA scan is a scan. It's a bone density scan for osteoporosis, and we know that 1 out of 2 women in the menopause will have osteoporosis. My mum died of osteoporosis at the age of 72 only. And
young.
and so for me, I basically, what happened was I fell off a 3-meter wall backwards. I was trying to break into my house because I'd left my keys. I'd gone out for Sunday lunch with my daughter, and we were both sharing keys because we'd both gone out for Sunday lunch together. And then she decided to go off, and I said, I'll go home. Anyway, I got home and I could see that the back door was open, and I was like, oh, gosh, and I was trying to ring a nurse and she wasn't answering the phone. And anyway, I tried to climb over a 3-meter wall. And anyway, I fell backwards. So it was a long way. Anyway, thank goodness that nothing really went wrong to me, but I fell on my wrist. So I broke that. But I knew that it was a massive fall. So it wasn't really about that. But because I was going through the menopause and everything, and then I was like, and my mum and everything, I thought, right, I'm going to do the DEXA scan. So I had the broken wrist. So then I went and I said, look, I've got the broken wrist. And I went to the GP, and then they gave me this questionnaire to do. And I was like, you know, I had to say, you know, I drank, 3 bottles of wine, and I ate fish and chips, and I smoked 40 cigarettes a day. And I just slightly tripped over, and it wasn't much anything to get the DEXA scan, on the NHS. And this is what I had to do to be able to get it at the age of 50. Now it came back, and in my left hip, it was completely red, and I have osteoporosis, not even osteopenia, which is the beginning. I am full in osteoporosis on my left hip, and I'm 50. So I'm thinking, I don't even know in the NHS, but I think my mum got sort of diagnosed at the age of 60 or 65. So I'm thinking they didn't even test. They didn't even bring it up. They haven't even, asked me. They don't, nobody has said you're in the menopause. There's also this is what I'm learning now.
Yes,
so I'm now learning 1 in 2 women have this osteoporosis. 1 in 3 women will have a stroke or a heart attack. I now work with the British Heart Foundation. Well, I don't work with them yet. I'm going to be doing stuff with them. I learned that 1 in 3 women will suffer from a stroke or a heart attack in the UK. It is so high, and it's something that women do not take on board at all. I mean, that is at a certain age, 1 in 3 women will. I mean, that to me just shocks me. So I'm hearing all this stuff, which is just shocking me at this statistics. 1 in 3 women, pelvic floor will collapse. I mean, I'm like, why hasn't anyone told me? I watch adverts on the UK where, you know, Lorraine in the morning we have there, and then in between, as we know, it's a morning program. In between, we have this Tenor Lady advert. Now, I never knew what Tenor Lady were for. I used to see this grey-haired woman, really healthy, jumping around a field, and it would say, and then I'd see a panty pad. I didn't know that 1 in 3 women will be having to wear these. And I'm like, what the fuck? What's going on? No one has told me. I just watched this advert for the last 25 years, never thought anything of it, or kept thinking it's never going to happen to me. And the truth is, a few of my friends were going through the menopause early in their 40s and like 10 years ago, and I just went, never going to happen to me. I gave birth in 1 hour and 15 minutes. I got up the table.
Wow.
I got straight up off the table. I had a shower. That was it. I walked into hospital, boom, done. Got up. I never had a period pain. I never had PMT. I never wanted to eat, kill my boyfriend, stab my husband and eat 10 pounds of chocolate. You know, I never had the hot water bottle. I never had the cramps. So I just assumed, well, I'm not going to have the menopause. But I didn't get to speak to my mum because she'd passed away. And then I asked my dad, but he, you know, clearly wasn't quite sure. But also she was quite ill at the end. So I wouldn't have known she was on a lot of medication for osteoporosis. So as well, I don't really know what was going on, but she never really showed signs in me. But also that, I mean, I left home at 18, hitchhiked to London and lived on the streets for 2 years. So I would not have known what was going on in those times.
Yeah. Exactly. And also, it is only now that menopause is actually really talked about. Women have been suffering in silence and also ashamed of these, you know, because women are shamed. They're shamed for having these oscillating feelings, for being, you know, suddenly declining. We rate, you know, sexiness and youth and there's a particular shape and a look that goes by. And of course, you know, we denigrate age, we denigrate older women. So even as I called, you know, that kind of wrinkled, dried up crone, we're horrible about older women. Yeah, we're horrid.
We do. I mean, you know, there was like, oh my God, she's single. She's like, you know, living with her 10 cats down the road. I mean, I remember hearing that for years. Do you know what I mean? But then also, you know, it's like, you know, you were just saying dry vagina and dry this. But then I remember being sort of young and everyone saying moist vagina. It made me feel ill as well. So I'm like, oh my God, it's funny, but what would I say now? I would just die for that. Actually, I'm all right there still. So we can put that out there. I'm still all right there. And also I do have my lovely range of lubricants.
Well, exactly. You've got a great range, haven't you?
I was not letting that go. But when I did lose my libido. That was my biggest fear, and wasn't my fear because it just happens, because it just went.
Where would you put yourself before menopause in terms of the libido? Would you have said you were quite
really highly sexed, so very highly sexed.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Very, very, yeah. I mean, I've got to just say, I probably was very highly sexed, and I was like, you know, most of my partners, boyfriends, etc., would always put me on the piposcope of like, would say, Meg, you know, can you calm down a bit? You're a bit like,
yes, can you just leave off?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Can we just have one night? You know what I mean? I was definitely like that. So that would just went without saying. I was always very confident in the bedroom, very outgoing, very sexual. I think I was like, you know, and I woke up and I was, you know, and I did masturbate a lot from a very early age, and I won't be embarrassed about that. I was like quite, you know,
no need to be.
Do you know what I mean? From my early teens, it just went without saying. It just did. So I was always, and I always did, and then all of a sudden, it just went. And that...
Did you just want a cup of tea instead?
You know what? It's really that, it comes to be like sort of getting into bed with like naked and feeling all like sexy. And then all of a sudden, it's like cozying up like, oh my God. Like,
give me a cuddle instead.
And give me, you know, I was just like, my favorite thing is blueberries with soya yogurt and crunchy peanut butter. And I would be like bowls of that, and that would be great. And I was just thinking, oh God, this is getting a bit worrying. So
you've gone from cock to
blueberries, you know, and then this is like, oh my God. But what happens with all that is there's the bigger picture of that, because then it goes in, it's like, I really can't be bothered to go out. And this is why women do. And I really can't be bothered to get dressed up. So I'm looking at my wardrobe and then all my sexy clothes, because, you know, we are wanting to be sexy and want to look good. But then now I'm just a bit like, well, I don't even feel like it. So you stop making an effort. And I noticed that. And then I just thought, gosh, this is where I've got to kick myself up the arse and get going again. So I spoke to like my gynecologist, and she said, you just got to get back on there. It's like getting to the gym. You've got to make yourself, watch porn, do something. You know, if you're with your partner, where, get dressed up. If it means you're going to have a couple of glasses of wine, I can't do that, but, you know, or whatever, you know, do it. Buy sex toys. So I was just a bit like, wow, okay, I'm going to have to kick this into shape, because it's really healthy to do it. It's scientifically proven that women get a spring in their step. They get promoted at work. It makes you feel good when you do it.
It's about your confidence and your identity, isn't it, Meg, really? Because it's not actually about being that sexy woman for other people.
No, it's in me. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about me. I don't dress up for anyone else except for me. But when that goes, it's like, it makes you really not really want to be bothered. And that's the thing. See why people do start wanting to be bothered. So I'm trying to sort of say, if you need to stay fit, then you need to keep going to the gym the same way as you need. It's very easy just to like put my hair in a ponytail and to put my baggy boyfriend jeans on, and, you know, but I don't really wear little black dresses and high heels. But I just think that a pair of jeans and a vest is just as sexy. But it's just like saying what I felt inside. I just didn't really feel that. So I thought, I can't be bothered. But then I think that is, of course, it's Mother Nature, because the same way as if I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you've ever come across this. I went to boarding school. So when you all share a dormitory with girls, you all come on together, have your periods at the same time.
Yeah, of course, you synchronize. And like Mike, in my house, we all do.
You do, right. So isn't this quite mad? So now I'm I'm going back, and I'm thinking more of like tribal. So I'm like thinking, if I'm in the village now, I would have stopped my periods. Of course, they don't want me. Mother Nature does not want me to be rampant and jumping on every young, good looking male in the village. I will be the older wife.
What a shame. Sorry, I just had to say that.
I know. So I would be sitting there, wouldn't I? I would be the one who would basically be sitting there because I do feel wiser and I do feel more comfortable in my skin now. I do feel like there was a lot of loss when I couldn't have when my periods went. There was a loss, and it was sad because the choice of having another child was taken away from me. So that was a little bit of a loss, which was a bit of saying goodbye to. But I looked, as I would be in the village, I would be looking after the children. People would be coming to me for advice. That would be my duty and my care and my job within the tribe or the village. Yeah. And this is what, instead of me, rampantly running around, because it would be down to all the girls in the village to be mating and whatever, you know what I mean? So I can see why, and in how it would have worked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and how it works now in society, in my world as well. But in my world, of course, the man, he can just drop a little blue tablet at any point that he likes and just carry on. But they haven't done that for women, they haven't done anything like that for women. So we have to keep it up ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, I think one of the interesting things is that the menopause has been a hidden thing for women. Of course, it's not. I mean, not in women's lives, it hasn't. But in terms of research and solutions and support, actually, we've been more interested in creating a little blue pill to make men, be able to stay hard. Whereas actually, we're not so concerned about having women's identity, because it's a fundamental identity shift, isn't it? Yeah. And a new life stage that actually can herald some incredible opportunities and positivity. But it's it's the actual journey that can be so bloody uncomfortable that women You know,
Yeah,
as you said,
yeah.
well, for a start, the majority of women are giving, you know, if it's not recognized, it can get diagnosed as depression. So that anti-Ds are given.
Yeah. So
You know,
until you
and we've got
do,
so many women on it.
yeah. So what you're exactly right, to get back on track again. So you're like, you know, we're a car, and basically you need to put the oil and the petrol in. And I see it as I was a car and I was running on zero, because when I got my bloods back, my estrogen was completely low as possible. My testosterone and progesterone I had a tiny little bit because I had the Marina coil in.
Oh, yeah,
so,
of course. Mm-hmm.
Of course. So I've already had that, but the rest of it was just zilch. So of course, this body is running. I had no idea that the estrogen would keep my bones healthy and stop me getting osteoporosis. That the estrogen would basically would keep my heart healthy. That the estrogen with my dry mouth syndrome is the same way as my dry eye syndrome and my vagina getting dry. Estrogen also navigates all of this. The estrogen, this hormone, is just basic. I never knew the word estrogen. I'd heard, I'd never even really taken two thoughts about it. Now it's probably the most important word in my life. And knowing what it does and how it supports the woman's body and to keep us healthy, basically just to keep us living a healthier, longer life and feeling, you know, with the aching joints and the inflammation in the joints and all these things, which unless your hormones are rebalanced back out, you're going to have a horrific time. Not everybody out there, you know, trust me, it doesn't happen to everybody, but you know, there's 13 million women in the UK going through the menopause, and trust me, a good percentage of them are suffering or have not been diagnosed in the right way or have not been given the right treatment, because there's not even enough information that the GPs out there and the nurses and the gynecologists and the doctors, and they don't have the up to date. They don't have the information. They're not really as up to date as people like the menopause doctor out there, Louise Newson and stuff like that, and the other lady that you spoke about in America,
Christiane Northrup. Yeah.
You know, and it's not their fault, and it's not the NHS's fault. I mean, the NHS fault. It's, you know, the NHS is breaking down because of, you know, they can only give you X amount of time, and I've heard that GPs only actually have like 3 hours training on the menopause, but we've changed so much.
God, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, between 2005, that paper that was written that frightened every living woman about cancer and HRT, it was put out there. And I have this bubble. You say HRT to me, and my subconscious says cancer for no apparent reason. It just comes up. So, you know, now we know that it doesn't, and it is fine to take it. Of course, if anyone's out there, I am not an HRT expert, so we have to know that, you know, you would need to be checked and speak to your GP. And if there is breast cancer in your family, etc., please go and speak to your doctor or your GP or your gynecologist. But, you know, HRT for me was my saving soul, and it basically, I've come through the menopause 5 years later. I still don't have, you know, I don't feel ever exactly the same as I did before it. I must say, like, I don't feel the same. I do feel that it did take a lot of things away from me within that 5 years.
What did it take away, Meg?
It took away. No, I'm just saying a way of like how do I say?
You're not quite the same woman.
Is not quite the same anymore. My zest for life is not as big as it was. I do the thought of traveling really still is just like, oh, I can't. The thought of traveling, the thought of long haul traveling, all these things have just sort of changed within me. As well
kind of your resilience. It sounds like your resilience is a little bit different.
Yeah,
than it was.
So I had this tattoo on my chest. I've got across my collarbone. It says, "This too shall pass," because I have one days when it comes. I have to remember that, because I will get a good day. But I know now some days I might wake up and I might just be like, wow, today's not as good as yesterday. But I know that it will pass. But,
Yes.
all of this was my journey, and that's what made me, I mean, whoever, I would never have thought I would have come publicly, openly out there and, and talk about the menopause. But I was just so disgusted with everything and with life and with doctors and society for not having that information for me, so that I had to go on this journey where I thought I was a very woman of the world, and, and I knew a lot about everything, that society let me suffer as I did, because there just wasn't, and nobody was really talking about it. And I never opened a magazine I never opened all those publications that I would read, any of those great magazines. There was nothing ever on there. Now I've just been in Vogue, which was amazing. And they did a 50 supplement pullout in British Vogue, and it was great.
Oh, brilliant. Well done.
On the menopause, and, and they have even in Grazia. Now, 5 years ago, they would never have even had those magazines. They, like their readership falls right out of this gap. So they wouldn't touch it, but they're beginning to, come around and talk about the menopause and write articles. And because it's important, because the other thing that for me worries me is that when I do talks now, so I do talks all for the Foreign Office, and I do talks for Global Women in News, and I'm sitting there and there's that, thousands of women working at the BBC, and I'm doing talks for them, and they're the same. They didn't get an expert in, they got me in, and and I just thought it was quite amazing. And I just did lots of workshops and menopause cafes and HR and line managers. It was, and talking about,
amazing.
And it was, it was a great day. But then I was all of a sudden talking in this room, and I looked around the room, and most of the women in this room, so it was a massive, it's a lot of people in the room, and a lot of them were in their early 40s. So then I just said, can everyone put their hand up and say, do they know what perimenopausal is? And a lot of women sort of put their hands up. And then I said, do you know that from the age of 40 to 45, 1 in 100 women, and their faces were like, oh my God. And then I was just like, we're now seeing that a lot more women, we get to cross over to the fertility bit. So now my menopause is, now I'm seeing that so many more women are having to do IVF because they're leaving things later, because no one had actually ever told them that they might go into perimenopause at this age, because I never had a clue. So now we're looking at that, the amount of women that are perimenopausal. My best friend, who's just had a baby boy, she had an egg donor and she had a sperm donor, and basically she was perimenopausal, and she was sitting there taking exactly the same hormones as me. We would laugh. She'd be injecting 1,000 milligrams of progesterone, and I'd be taking 100, but she was taking this amount of estrogen and I was taking that amount of estrogen. I was like, wow. And I never had any clue about all of this. So this is why it's just opened my world. And
well, what you're doing is you're normalizing, you're bringing the discussion about an incredibly normal, obvious, inevitable part of a woman's life. And this inevitable stage of a woman's life, whether it does start at 40 or whether it starts at 45 or nearing 50, whatever, it's going to come. And it has a huge impact on men's lives. If the woman's heterosexual, then she's, might be in relationship with a guy. I mean, men are they live with this. They live with menopause too, because they're living with it. Literally, the impact of that woman's health and wellness and oscillating moods or whatever the issues are. And workplaces are waking up to the fact that, an awful lot of their workforce are either going through, they're looking at the maternal piece, women going to have babies, and whether they're having infertility, as you just say, or now they're just waking up to the fact that, they've got menopausal, this whole menopause journey that affects their workforce. And it is very exciting that, there's a ripple of conversation from a number of quarters, not just the medical field, but Andrea McLean just had her book out about her menopause, and people are beginning to break silence on, you're not done. You're not dead. We're not done and dusted if we're going through the menopause, are we? I mean, you can feel like you are, but actually, the more of us that speak up,
Absolutely,
more women that actually speak. And I absolutely. One of the most exciting kind of upcoming episodes I've got is a woman who's a wonderful woman called Erica Napolitano. She's actually a very famous TED Talk woman. And this is not her sphere, menopause or any of this isn't her sphere, but what is that she's quietly alongside her big career giving eggs. So she is an egg donor. And it's funny, because we never have, we hear from sperm donors in the world, and we hear from women, we're just beginning to hear from women who have received the eggs, but we don't
know
actually.
Egg donors, no, you're quite right, actually.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. And Erica, I'm recording with Erica very soon, and I'm so excited because I wanted to hear, what was it? Because of course they have to go through an incredible hormonal protocol.
Yeah, that's the other thing. What they do. I mean, when I heard about, I had no clue either. I thought when you give your eggs or you freeze your eggs or whatever, you just go, boom, here you go in. No, and then you're knowing that you're going 12 to 14 days. You're going to have to inject, yourself every day. Then we're going to have to pluck the eggs out, which is your legs in stirrups and this big long sort of needle thing going in. I was like, oh my God, a big round of applause.
It's a big procedure. It's a really big procedure.
It's a big procedure. And also we know that those hormones can send you completely nuts and make you feel rubbish. And, and so, I think it's amazing for any woman who's actually giving her eggs as well. I think it's,
absolutely. And
my best friend, like the happiest woman in the world, because when she started, my friend started IVF, she wasn't perimenopausal. She did 3 rounds of IVF. It didn't take. Then the last time she went to Denmark, because she was like sick of it, I'm going to Denmark. She got there. They said, oh, no, sorry, your eggs aren't good enough.
It's done.
Yeah. Done. And so she was like, no, what, 43. She was like, no. And they're like, yeah, I'm really sorry. And then they said she left there in tears. And she was one of the first British women that they gave a Danish egg to. She was in Time magazine.
Wow.
And she left there. And a week later, she sort of got back here and she was like, oh, now, because she was just taking the sperm because her partner was a lot older than her. So she was just taking the sperm. And then all of a sudden she was like, oh, no. And they called her up and said, look, we will give you a Danish, egg. But you will be one of the first out of Denmark. We haven't done this before.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what a gift.
So we have a miracle baby within us, as we call it. Yeah.
Yeah. It is
a miracle. Yeah. She's on my pod. She's on my, my YouTube channel, because she's my best friend talking when she's actually pregnant at the time. So
wonderful. We must look that up.
Like, to me and her, we just worship. We think it's amazing.
Well, it is. And so many women, because they're not realizing about the life cycle of our systems, our ovaries. We have a warehouse full of eggs, and that's it. And when they go, they're going.
I didn't know it was about quality and quantity. I didn't even get that at all. I've only learned that. I've only learned all this when my friend Neely Moore, she won't mind me saying, she was going on her journey. I'd only learned about this then. Because of her journey, learned it's, the quality of the egg, and she, as you go get, every time you ovulate, the quality and the quantity, go. I had no idea how this even worked either. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, and there's also, conversely, as much as there are women, our fertility declines, of course it does in our 40s, but then also there's this upsurge of women who are having children in their 40s because, of course, the system, reproductive system, actually, it bangs out eggs because it knows it's on its last hurrah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I love learning.
Yes. Yeah. So we often
get these people. Yeah, because I've heard a few people, like I've said, when I've talked about the fertility thing, I've said, I absolutely ended up pregnant. I really didn't want to end up pregnant at all either.
Yes, exactly. Because lots of women are thinking that they're actually less fertile, so we become a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the ovaries pump out 2 or 3 eggs at the time, which, of course, I'm one of those women. We were trying, so that's okay. So it wasn't a big surprise. But nevertheless, triplets. Yeah, exactly. And that's how it happens, because the old ovary says, well, we've only got a few eggs left, so let's pump them out, get rid of a few this month. And hey, if you're lucky, some would say deeply unlucky, but there you go. And it's all at that same stage of perimenopause.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And in the menopause as well, with those periods going off and on, and you're not having a period for 2 months or 3 months, there's, we now have to tell women, really, please, even when you're menopause, be really careful, because you can still get pregnant. It's really, we say up until you not have a period for exactly 12 months in, consistently, then you're fine.
I was talking to somebody who was saying how much they love the menopause part 1, the compilation. And and I was telling her about our conversation. And she said, wow, I'm okay, because I thought I was okay because I hadn't had a period for a year. And of course, that's the big threshold. So I was saying, I was going to say to you, I'm postmenopausal. And then she said, I actually started my period yesterday.
Oh, no. Wow,
how's that happened? Like a whole year. She thought she was out the other end, was feeling much better. And suddenly, literally that morning, she's saying,
this is what I mean. This is the other thing. So how long is a piece of strings? And the other thing is that I've been learning, and that's why I'm loving it. The thing about the menopause is that I hardly ever meet anyone who's had the same menopause experience. So there's so many different symptoms. And also, we have to look into the lifestyle. Like, I'm a child of the 60s, so I'm a pesticide baby. We don't know any of those pesticides, what they were doing for us. We now know that estrogen dominant, things of the like pesticides and blue light, which is, from our iPhones and our iPads and our computers and the TV and everything that we have around us, also plays havoc with estrogen and our hormones, and this life and pollution, everyday pollution that we're living in. Of course, we haven't taken on any of these outer things that we have no control over either, that are also coming into, the foods that we eat. Everything is making these symptoms a lot worse than they probably, and of course, would have been 50 years ago, just because of the world and the environment and everything that we learn about, like every day there is something new on, telling us dementia, eat meat, bacon or whatever, dementia, we're knowing this is coming from that, it's just.
Tell me about that. So 1 minute. So in order to reduce the likelihood of dementia, do we need to eat meat or not?
Now if you eat sausage or bacon, this is, I saw this pop up in the news. Yeah, if you eat, one of these, like, most days, like everyone says, the Great British Breakfast or things, now they're eating meat with dementia now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. That's good. That makes me feel better about my slap up breakfast. That's good.
Yeah, so there you go. The Great British Fry Up, they're saying, and all these people that everybody has a bacon sarnie and a sausage sandwich or whatever most days or whatever, or go to McDonald's or whatever. So, beware, everyone, other than you shouldn't eat, because I'm completely anti killing animals. As you know, I have a huge passion for the animal world. It's also, they're now deciding that, dementia is probably, this is one of the causes that they could look at.
Oh, interesting. Now, I want to recap on, you mentioned about estrogen and progesterone, and you did quickly mention about testosterone. Now, testosterone, for a lot of women, it's really interesting. I talked to a lot of women around this, and they don't know that they have testosterone, that we have testosterone. And of course we have to have testosterone, which, we're a masculine and feminine. We have the yin and the yang, and we literally have that in our hormones. And, some of that would account for instance, I'm imagining, again, listeners, I'm not a medical expert, but I've done a lot like Meg.
So we'll go in this together.
Exactly. But nevertheless, it would probably sound like that you'd had a very healthy kind of upper end of testosterone, given your drive, your libido, your zest for life, which of course, that's what would contribute to that oomph kind of. Yes.
And I'm so glad that you said it like you did, and you said it perfectly, and the way that you said it, because this is exactly what I basically looked at and was like, the way my body's built anyway, I'm quite boyish. I'm quite tomboyish. I'm very muscular for a girl.
Yep.
And I'm like, so for me, as I've been going on this journey, that I sat down and thought, you know what, I was probably had a lot of testosterone in my body, sort of thing.
Yeah, I imagine.
So then I was sort of that, because, I'm, just the way that I am, I think I'm quite alpha female. So I think I would be a bit like this. So I think when my testosterone left me, that is why I hit suddenly like that.
Yes.
So then, of course, I did take testosterone and my libido did come back.
Yeah.
And also, it gave me that drive to get back in the gym.
Yes.
It gave me that little oomph and that bit of energy. And the testosterone is that bit of the little kick and spark that. And also I read that we also in our 20s, we make something like three times as much testosterone as estrogen as women. It's a really important hormone. And yes, I have plucked hair from my nipple, and I have plucked hair from my chin. And you do not, whatever you do, rub testosterone on your inner thigh, because you will get a line of hair down there. Please do keep it to your upper arm, underneath your arm, because I did do that. And I had to have the hair laser, which was so embarrassing, because I even knew not to do it there, but I just got in such a way of putting my pumps on in the morning, put my estrogen on my inner thigh, because it's the thinnest skin. Awful, isn't it? It's the thinnest skin on your body. Isn't that awful? And you just know that is, because it does go there the quickest. It's like, oh, that skin between your thighs. Please love that, every young girl, because I tell you what, it just goes very quickly. So I'm rubbing my estrogen there, and then I rub the testosterone there, and then, oh dear, I ended up with, like this line of hair down my leg. So now it's not there anymore. I was just like, oh my God. And I went and had a hair laser removal, and it's gone now, but it does really grow there. But I put it under my arm, and where my bicep is just under there, and no hair grows there, and it makes you feel great. So don't worry about, getting an Adam's apple and a deep voice. I've got a very gruff, deep voice. My voice has always been like this. So always been like this, and can get even more deeper. But that's nothing to do with testosterone. And it doesn't, it basically really helps. Now, the other thing that we're going to have a problem here when we talk about this, women will go to their GPs. In this country, a GP cannot give you a prescription.
Yes, I know. It's been withdrawn. It's actually been withdrawn from UK women. We used to be able to. I mean, years ago, menopausal women or at any stage of it could actually be prescribed testosterone. It was, I can't remember when it was withdrawn. I mean, I'm sure I can find out, but it was a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't know, because
I didn't know about it then, but subsequently looking at this whole subject, it is something that can only be given privately, which I want to say is pretty.
No, you can get on the NHS. I'll tell you when you can. So basically, to put it out there, you can get it on the NHS we have on the NHS. We have 27 menopause clinics around the UK, which are amazing. And I go to one at the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. There's also one at the Royal Free if you're in London. And there's also, I think, on Megs Menopause on the website, I've got the list of
I'll put the link in the show notes, listeners,
but
so that we can
go just to a menopause clinic. You have to be referred by your GP. So when you go to your GP, you ask to be referred to a menopause clinic where you can then get your testosterone prescription, and then it will be on your notes, and then you can update it, and then you can get your prescription, and then you go back once a year to the menopause clinic where they redo your bloods or see how you're doing or whatever, or you can get your prescription, which will be on your notes. But it's quite mad that you only sort of can cross, if you not have your GP, but then go to a menopause clinic on the NHS, then they give you the testosterone, but your GP can't give you testosterone. I still can't get my head around that, and I don't know why.
That's ridiculous.
I can get it. Now, they have not made a formulated one in the UK for a woman. So we have to use a man's testosterone, which they used to give you a tiny little tube. A man would put one tube on a day, and we would take a pea size and rub it on our arm and make the tube last for 7 days. So now it comes in a bigger bottle where you just do one pump and you rub it on each day. But there is nothing to say that there's the science behind it and everything, because I have 2 doctors that work with me at Megs Menopause. Tiago is a stem cell scientist. Oh,
right.
We've been speaking to, he's so they were saying about it's not that much difference to our testosterone. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it would.
But isn't it ridiculous that there isn't a version for women? I mean,
because there is one in Australia that I do know that a couple of doctors, private doctors in this country, Louise Newson, she has it. This one woman's one that comes from Australia, and another doctor, I can't remember her name, in Harley Street. I'm not very good with names. It's probably my foggy brain. She also has it. So I do know that there is a woman's one, but they don't have it in the UK. They have to actually bring it in from Australia to show you. And every woman in this country is going to go through the menopause, and every woman cannot be taking HRT, but should be able to be offered all of this. Should just be offered, and every GP. So when you have this, we have this, when you hit 50, I think you get sent by the NHS. They go, we want to do your 50 checkup. So they'll offer you a mammogram, but they don't, and they offer you to do your blood test and your cholesterol and your blood pressure. But not once do they mention, are you going through the menopause? But they offer you this 50 tests, 50...
MOT, yeah.
MOT, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. But they don't mention the word menopause. So why, when they saying to you, we think mammogram, well, you never mention the word menopause, but you're saying mammogram to me. Why didn't you ever say to me, you are going to probably have to have a mammogram now you've hit 50, but have you ever thought about the menopause? Not once did any GP ever or anybody say that to me either.
Yet, as you say, absolutely every woman will go through it, and it has profound impacts, and those ripple out into the workplace, into relationships, into, the cost of giving women antidepressants. They don't need antidepressants. It's actually not that. It's a hormonal, a natural kind of change of, it's an oscillation, isn't it? It's a gradual thing. Yeah. And like you said, no woman is the same. We all experience this different. Some do fly through and actually just,
absolutely.
They don't have a crippling, debilitating menopause, but more and more women are coming out of this silence and saying it's a shit show. It's absolutely horrific. And it's only for some women when they're actually through it that they realize, oh my God, those 3 to 4 years where I was raging, or
raging and hysterical and crying and whatever.
And actually it is important to say, I have met some people, some women who say it's like a second adolescence. They feel like this raging bull, but in the testosterone side of like, I just want to fuck anything that moves.
Yeah, no, I've heard that as well. I've had women at my conference who are just like, I'm really sorry, but I'm just like completely the other way.
At it. Like, I wasn't like this before, and now I just swear anything with a pulse and I'm on it.
Absolutely. I'm like, oh my God, I was so jealous. I was like, just give me that back.
It's so funny. Actually, I have a good friend who at 40, she was happily married, obviously not going to mention her name because that would be awful. Yeah. But, she'd never forgive me. Happily married, really solidly married, wonderful husband, wonderful relationship, wonderful life, everything very settled and very exciting as well. Actually, lots of lovely, exciting things. So it wasn't dull. And she got to about 42 and she began to fuck her children's swimming teacher and then someone else. And she said to me, Janusha, I don't know what's happening. I can't, Nora. Because I actually pulled her aside and I said, listen, darling, you're going to screw this whole thing up. This marriage will implode. You cannot do this, sweetheart. And she's like, I can't stop myself. I just can't stop myself. Now, actually, what she was going through was perimenopause. She was going through a stage where the hormones were going all over the show. And it, sadly, it did exactly do what I just said, which is he found out, and it was multiple men, and she's an incredible woman. Love her to bits, and it screwed up everything. The marriage went, the kids were pulled through a lot. She had quite a vicious after that, the libido kind of settled, and then she went into lots of other menopause.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because and that's what teaching, and I can imagine because, going from that high to
it plummeted, actually.
All of a sudden plummeted, and then look at the aftermath of destruction that this hormone's done, because, I finished with my partner because I just could not let him even touch me or, made me feel physically ill. And how awful is that? But that's where it took me to, and I was just like, don't need to touch me sort of thing. And that's, so, it was awful as well.
That's what I mean about men being on the receiving end of this, that they don't understand. They don't understand really, because if you don't understand, how the hell can they understand that actually...
I didn't know what was going on either at that time. I was just a fucking bitch. And I was was, like you said, I was just really not a nice person and really nitpicking, like to the point of nasty, really. So I would say, this is what I did. And I'm like sitting now and I think, oh my God, we are, we're 3 years later, and I was just a vile, just not a vile human being.
And that's why Meg's menopause is so crucial to so many women, that you get this message out that, this is not that you've suddenly become this fucking bitch that suddenly is or a depressive or whatever. It's, whatever you were, it isn't that you've suddenly become someone else. It's actually because of your hormones. And I think I see that in some women, actually it's really funny. I have to say this. I love to bits, and I'm deeply grateful to the women that were on the compilation part 1. I really genuinely mean that. I cannot be grateful enough.
Yeah, I can't wait to.
It was fantastic. And obviously it's quite a lot, to pull together a group of women across the world because I wanted that. I wanted them to not just be in the UK or even just the US. And so they are from around the world. And so communicating with women on menopause and pulling them together to make a menopause episode, I had quite a laugh. I had quite a laugh because, there is a certain way of communicating depending on which part of the menopause you're in. And so some contributors, they might listen to this. So you'll know who you are, my darling, as I mention you. Kind of, no, I can't.
I love it. So nice you put that. Like, you'll know who you are, but I'm not really going to let you know how you are.
Exactly. No. I was like, hello, are you ready to, send that piece of recording? I'm not ready. No. If you don't want it on this day, you can't have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had to remind myself, oh, yes, well, of course, I'm actually in relationship, in communication with women who are actually going through this. So, yeah, of course. So it was really wonderful to learn just simply through dealing with a number of women who were at different stages, because they're peri, they're post, they're in it, they're in the thick of it. And it gave me a flavour of, like snap, bite.
Absolutely. I've been throwing, like gone to do shopping and, thrown baskets down because someone's made a joke and it wasn't really a joke. And, I was like, what? Yeah. It was, I've had all sorts of things. And then I just thought, oh, it's life. Never would think it's hormones. I just kept saying, bloody, it's him or it's her. And it was blaming it on the whole world except my hormones and me, and knowing it was me.
Once we get those rebalanced, and it can be quite a quite a tricky little exercise to find the right kind of balance for yourself, but in the hands of an expert, a medical expert, this can be done. I mean, there's bioidentical hormones, there's all sorts of solutions. I mean, as you've got lots of solutions. Homeopathic,
you can do HRT, but body identicals, bioidenticals, whatever you choose. I'm not all 4 in 1. Some people are. I'm very open about it, and I think people should be able to do what they want and and feel the journey that they want to go down. Because everyone is different, so everybody should be able to. Some people do it with
nutrition,
food,
exercise, yoga, meditation.
So some people don't even take anything. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but we do know sort of things. But as I'm not an expert, then I don't. I just would want to support and put as much information on Meg's Menopause, like I say, as what ways there are, what you can do, how you can do mindfulness, love yourself first. Just please, just keep loving yourself and be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
The big one that I want to say to every woman, because that self-love we forget. And on this journey, it definitely goes, it's lost. So we need to be kind to ourselves because his body is changing and it needs to still be loved and to be looked after and to be cherished. And because, at the times we forget about it and we forget about ourselves.
Well, women are really good at not being kind to ourselves. So, I mean, I think that's a really perfect moment to leave with, that message to leave with our listeners, because being kind and loving ourselves, whichever stage we're at, is crucial. We are just wicked to ourselves, women, and it's time to stop that. And I'm deeply grateful to you, Meg, that you were brave enough to air your story, share, and actually create something beyond you could have just written a story, couldn't you, in Grazia and be done with it. But actually you've gone much further than that. And you're using your platform and your public figure status for the good of other women. And I'm really grateful. And thank you for this conversation.
No, and thank you for having me on your amazing podcast. And you have been a very eloquent and amazing and intelligent lady to do this interview with. You've been amazing.
Thank you, Meg.
And I will be plugging everyone to go to your podcast.
Oh, thanks, Meg.
What a bloody blast, right? Meg took us behind closed doors on her menopause journey. I mean, it's such honesty. Thank you, Meg, for your raw truth-telling and for being a superstar in bringing help to menopausal women. All around the world, I imagine. I mean, I bet. So take a look at Meg's work over at Megs Menopause. You can find them at www.megsmenopause.com. That's it, everyone. Till Wednesday. Same time, same place. Meet me here. Thank you so much for joining us again. Lots of love.
Thank you for tuning in to the School for Mothers podcast. To continue the conversation and keep your dose of inspiration up, head over to schoolformothers.com/podcast, where you'll find bonus content from Danusha and her guests on habits, recommendations, books, best apps, time-saving secrets, life hacks, health, sleep, and anything in between. That's schoolformothers.com/podcast.